Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sounds Like Sam. Today we're going to be talking about 5 running backs that I am targeting a little bit later in the draft, or guys kind of to look out for during your draft. I am a fantasy drafter who likes to draft wide receivers early and often. I know it's probably a little bit riskier, especially because of how dominant and how solid like the best running backs are in the game. It's a little bit more risky to take like the wide receivers just because there's more like decent wide receivers that you can get later in the draft than there are running backs. But for some reason, I just really like taking big name wide receivers early. And so if you're like me and looking for kind of the loophole running backs, I guess you could call them, guys who are kind of available later in PPR leagues, at least according to ESPN and their rankings. I'm going to be talking about a couple guys and who I'm going to be looking for to draft. So should be a good episode. I'm going to try and make it a quick pod. So let's get started. My first running back is actually going to be Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys. I know you've probably never heard his name before, but or to feed him, but he's a guy who right now is ranked 42nd by ESPN in PPR leagues. Last season he was the running back 7 in PPR leagues, and currently he's the number 20 running back on ESPN's 2022 fantasy football cheat sheet. So I really like him at this position, especially if I'm thinking about drafting like 2 wide receivers in the first 2 picks, or even maybe just getting all my guys together like for my first 2 wide receivers and maybe a flex wide receiver, and looking for running backs. He's a guy I would look to, especially in the 4th round, if you can snag him. I think this is a good pick. Just said it. He finished 7th last season. I think is the reason he's going in the 4th round, or a little bit later than you normally see him, because you'd see him going in the 1st or 2nd round. He's going here because he's had some injury problems. Didn't look great down the stretch last season, but he did play on like a torn ACL like half the season, so I mean, I guess that's reasonable. And then you got Tony Pollard, who's been kind of taking away more and more carries every single year he's been in the league, and just being a really dominant player for them. But I still really like Zeke. I mean, they still want to feed him. He's good for, I'd say, at least 250 carries. His 3-year average has been 261 rushing attempts, 1,113 rushing yards, averaged 4.3 yards a carry, had 9 touchdowns a season, and then he's averaged 69 targets over the last 3 years, and 51 receptions, for only about 2 touchdowns a year receiving wise, and 348 receiving yards over that average. But I mean, that's not bad, especially considering when he first started in the league, he wasn't really a receiving threat, and now more and more they're starting to look for him a little bit more. Obviously his injury proneness is a little bit of an issue, but I still really like him as possibly a 3rd or 4th round pick. I think, given his ceiling and what he's been able to do, to be like, he's been a top 4 back. If he can get back up to that place, you're looking at a big steal, and someone who you can kind of wait back a little bit and see how he does, because their offense is still going to be pretty solid next season. I think they still got some kinks to work out, especially with Amari Cooper gone. Like, they really need to make sure that CD is going to be the guy. But I like the guys that Dak has around him, and I think Ezekiel's going to have a big role, and he looks like he's good to go this season. So looking forward to him, and I think he's a guy to look for this season. Next guy on my list is going to be Raiders running back Josh Jacobs. Right now he's ranked as the 55th overall fantasy pick. He's the running back 22 for PPR leagues, and last season he finished as the running back 12. Now I guess I should mention that the stats I'm pulling these from, they're actually from a PPR league that has some different rulings. Each 100-yard game adds like an extra 5 points. So, I mean, I'm not sure if these stats are indicative of this particular league. I think they are, but still, like, it's good to kind of see where they're at, and that's kind of where I'm pulling these stats from. But anyways, going back to Josh Jacobs, I really like him this season. Even with Davante Adams coming in, I think that would actually be a benefit for him, surprisingly, because even though it might take some targets away from him, I think he's going to see a lot more and a lot more carries on the ground, and he's going to get a lot more looks in the end zone again, because I believe that Davante is going to really pull defenders towards him, and it's going to create more space and allow Josh Jacobs to have a little bit better maneuverability in the field this season. So we'll see if it actually translates. And I know it seems like put together, like all the weapons they have now with the addition of Adams, with Hunter Renfrow, with Darren Waller, Derek Carr at the helm. It's looking like a pretty decent offense. They just got rid of Kenyon Drake. I know that they got the Patriots offensive coordinator. I believe he's the offensive coordinator for the Raiders as well. And if you're thinking, oh, that's bad because, they split carries all the time. But wait, Damien Harris had 15 touchdowns last season. That's good. We like to see that. He only had 200 touches, but he still finished the year as the running back 14. So I think he's still within that range. He has a good 3-year average. He's had very almost similar to Zeke's 3 years. He's had 244 rushing yards, 1,029 rushing. Oh, I think I said 244 rushing yards. I meant 244 attempts, 1,029 rushing yards. He's averaged 9 rushing touchdowns. He's averaged 36 receptions and 250 yards per season. So pretty decent stats. I think he's a really solid looking running back too. I don't think they're going to stray away from him too much. I wouldn't listen to the haters. I still think he's going to be a decent running back this season, and I would look for him. I'd target him for sure. So if he's in the 5th round, snatch him. So that's my advice for him. And I do want to say too, before I leave him, he actually did really well last season in the receiving category. I think he had like 56 receptions for 64 yards or something or 64 targets, which is very good for running backs, especially considering the best pass catching running backs are getting somewhere around 60 to 70 receptions. So to be in that range is very good, and hopefully he can repeat that. But again, it might be a little bit tougher, and that may be why his stock is a little bit down, according to ESPN. But I'd still target him in PPR leagues. Next guy on my list is going to be Kareem Hunt of the Cleveland Browns. Now, I know he didn't he's been a little bit injury prone. Only played 5 legit games last season, but in those 5 legit games that he played, which were like the first 5 games of the season, he averaged 17.8 PPR points a game and was splitting carries and really just taking the receiving part of the game for the Cleveland Browns. So if he can stay healthy, I've always been in favor of him. I know that he's had some issues, obviously, with injuries, but I really like him if he can stay healthy. Right now, he's the number 80 overall fantasy player, according to ESPN. He's a running back 28, and I think he's been a top 10 guy before. I believe he can do it again. Now they won't have Deshaun Watson for the first 11 games, but I think even Deshaun Kaiser can throw the ball to him. So hopefully he doesn't get traded or anything, but I still really like him as the receiving back in Cleveland, and I think he could do really well for you, at least at the beginning. So I would consider him a major flex play if I were you, especially in PPR leagues. So good guy to target around the 7th round. Next guy is going to be Corel Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons. Last season, he basically had the best season he's ever had in fantasy. Had basically a breakout season for himself, and I believe he could do it again. I mean, the Falcons are really bad. They don't really have many playmakers. I mean, they're going to be relying on rookie Drake London from USC to be their wide receiver 1, and second-year tight end Kyle Pitts to basically be another receiver for them. Russell Gage, their really only receiving threat last season as a wide receiver, is now on the Bucs. It's a good opportunity for Corel Patterson to be like the Deebo Samuel he was last season, because he kind of was in that hybrid position. So I really like him next season. I think he could have a very similar season to what he did in 2021, and he was averaging like 15 points a game. So I think he's a good guy to steal at the 8th round. Right now, he's considered the running back 31. Last season, he finished as the running back 9. So there's a lot of good things going on for him, and I really think he's going to be a key part in this offense, and they're going to need to use him, and they're going to want to use him, especially because they don't even really have a running back anyways. So hopefully he can get stuff done for them in their offense and be a good fantasy player for you again this year. All right, next guy on my list is going to be James Cook, who is the Buffalo Bills running back they drafted this season. He was the Georgia Bulldog, won national championship with them. He's Dalvin Cook's brother. I really like him as a receiving threat and possibly as a flex play. You can get him really late. I mean, he's literally ranked like 106 overall, which is pretty good considering he's like the running back 2 on the Bills. And I know Devin Singletary is in front of him, but like in reality, let's be real, like they're looking for a go-to guy, and this could be their guy. And if he succeeds, you're going to want to have him on your fantasy team. And for me, he's bringing a lot of Alvin Kamara vibes. If you drafted him as a rookie, I believe in 2015, then you're going to want to draft Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook. So I really believe he can also cook up a nice, hearty fantasy season for you, which is going to be very tasty. And horrible analogy, but I think he's a good pick, especially around the 10th, 11th round. Just a guy, if you really need somebody, look for him. He's going to be the receiving threat out of the backfield for the Bills. And we all know Josh Allen has been the quarterback 1 in fantasy for the past 2 seasons. And He's an elite passer. I'd say give him a shot. They could always. You kind of want someone from the Bills anyway, so just think about James Cook and especially later in the draft. So my last guy I'm gonna say who is an honorable mention on this list is Melvin Gordon. I talked a little bit about him on my Instagram page, but he actually did really well last season. He played just as good as Javonte Williams and actually had a better season than him. I really believe that even if they do go more of Javonte Williams' way, I still think he's going to get about the same amount of carries. And yeah, they might sway Williams' way, but considering that he had 8 touchdowns last season, which was more than Javonte had, and he finished the season as the 11th best rusher and 11th best in rushing touchdowns, I think at his current position of 119 overall on the draft boards and the running back 41, I think you have to consider him. And especially if Javonte Williams gets injured, you got to look for him, and I think you got to draft him, especially if you need a running back. So, especially now because I have Russell Wilson too. So, definitely look for him to get carries, to be a part of the offense. It will be a shared offense, I believe, but I think you got to look for him as well. So that's my list. Really appreciate you listening. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me at Bullseye Fantasy on Instagram or Twitter. So also feel free to like and share this podcast and write a review on Apple Podcasts. I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for listening. Peace.